Okay. Today's presentation really is geared toward people that are new, who haven't really heard a organized collection of thoughts about our paradigm and what we're about. And my notes are really long, like 9 pages, and most of it really doesn't. They're sort of triggers for me, so I only made copies for the rookie people, but I encourage you veteran people to just have pen and paper ready, just in case an occasional juicy thought comes your way that inspires you. Not all of them will be so juicy because you've heard them before. Can I get you to scooch back so I can see? Okay. And if after we're done, if people do want a copy of this, I'll get one to you. Probably email it to you. I'm gonna wait for them to come. Are they making a bathroom break or?
Maybe we get pen and paper.
Oh, pen and paper. Oh.
You can probably go ahead and go, unless you're going to say something amazing.
I'm going to say something so amazing. I just really, it's so amazing. I wouldn't want to deprive them of the opportunity to hear it. I'll still be nibbling as we go through this. And then the other thing is, as I've been planning on sort of moving away from the practice, I've been wanting to really invest in our practice, and have realized that I really haven't done much of that, and so wanted to. And two, there are some things that are new that I don't think you guys, some of you have heard, that just, things you pick up, so there'll be some new things, but I also just wanted to have a sort of a statement about who we are, what the paradigm is that I would like to see as director, especially new people adhere to and sort of use as a framework. So I have 50 of them. 50 different. I started with 25, and I just kept coming up with ideas, so I ended up with 50. So hopefully we'll get through that. If not, we'll tag some on for another time. What and Dr. Baca does this in therapy, is he'll ask you a question, and there's a right answer and a wrong answer, and then you'll take 2 or 3 stabs at the wrong answer, and then he finally tells you the right answer, and it makes you feel sort of stupid. So I'm going to start the presentation by doing that. My intention isn't to make you feel stupid, but what would you guess would be, if I were to rank them in order, just hit the microphone, what do you think I'd put first? You guys can't, on the list, you guys can't say because you have the list.
Oh, rank the...
My list of most important things in family tree's paradigm.
You marry yours.
You would think, and that's number 2. Right? Coming in at number 2 is you marry yours. Okay, I'm doing the Dr. Bach thing. I'll stop. That's sort of number 2. I sort of blended them together. The first thing is you got to make the room safe, right? Physically safe.
That would be part of it.
That is part of it. If people are tripping, they'll get sued a lot. So, there's a story about Murray Bowen that one day he was having a session with some people that were doing some real advanced work, And I consider advanced work being where they come in and they hardly know that you're there. And they sit down, they just start talking to each other. They're sort of looking at each other. And they just go on for half an hour. And they don't get stuck. You know how sometimes clients get stuck? And they look at you like, dear God, please help us. Get unstuck. Say something. But he went the whole session, didn't say 3 words. And then the guy's writing out this big fat check to him at the end. He goes, what did you do during this big fat check? And Murray Bowen said, I provided a safe environment for you. And really, once we get people to sit on the couch, that's the first thing you got to do. Is that the room it's got to be safe. And there's a lot of things that go into safety, and it's like you got to be really attuned to the process. What's he doing? And okay, the couple here, the client is for this whole presentation is pretty much couples. Okay, I know you'll have individual clients and there's a different safety issues there, but think in terms of couples, because that's sort of mainly what we do, So, the first point I want to make about that is you have got to be in control of the room as soon as their butts hit the couch. Because if you're not, then they're in control of the room, and you might have a really reactive couple. And it can go to hell in a handbasket pretty quick. So even that first 5 minutes is important. Because with most couples, they're on good behavior, right? They haven't shown us their ugly parts yet. But some, it don't take them long, to get ugly. And so what they need to know is that this is a safe place. So to do that, you might have to intervene early on, even in the first 5 minutes. So, the part of the paradigm is whoever didn't contact you. I always start by saying, "Gee, Mary, you or Joe sent me an email, and he said, that you guys don't have enough sex." And that's his issue, and that's from his perspective. That's why he's here. So, Mary, let me let you start and just sort of hand her the floor. And then hopefully what you'll get is, you get anything you get. It's all good. But if you get her ripping into him and being highly reactive and plus minusing and wanting to take the full hour to put a beat down on him, that's what you can't allow, in my estimation. That as soon as you get the gist of where she's going, and that it's going to be an hour probably, that at some point with a little bit of finesse, you need to sort of redirect her. And I don't know if you guys have noticed that sometimes men in the waiting room look all hangdog looking and all, dear God, why am I here? I don't want to be here, And then you get him in the room and you can sense this guy is he is out of his element. He does not want to be here. And I think part of the reason for that is a lot of our clients have been to marriage counseling before. And a lot of marriage counseling is beat up on the husband time. Who generally of the two sexes screws up more colorfully and more often?
The guy.
Why did you say that so enthusiastically?
I thought about it a lot.
I mean, that's been my experience, both as a husband and as a therapist. And so if they're not coming in with insight.
She called me out.
Yeah.
Your marital experience hasn't confirmed that it's the guy who acts out. Yeah. It is both, but generally
Guys are more colorful.
Colorful.
That's the word. Yeah.
colorful, counter-dependent, oblivious, and a lot of the times it's the wife's codependent bitterness that's driving them into therapy. So she's coming in with a list this long of things that she wants to talk about, and he just knows he's in for a beating. Except he's not going to get beat just by her. There's a professional here to beat him too. And he knows because he's been to two of them already, and that's what they did. You know, they went to the, you know, maybe the Christian counselor who, you know, had all these, you're supposed to love, you know, your wife as Christ, love the church. No pressure. No pressure. You know, just do that. So what I try to do is just be aware of the air in the room, and if there's any plus minusing going on, and you know, I would say in my experience maybe half the time there is, and if it's just like minimal and low grade, you know, I'm not gonna make a big issue. But if the room doesn't feel safe, then I might interrupt and give a little lesson on. I'll draw my little 4 circles, and I'll talk about plus minusing and plus plus. And it's such an easy concept. Transactional analysis is basically what it is, and that people just latch on to it immediately. And whoever's being plus minus, they're like, yeah, I was getting plus minus, you know, and they start to feel a little better, a little safer. One of the things that I do around safety is I'll write on the whiteboard the words content versus process. And have you seen me do that, or do you do that, or okay? Do you do it? Okay. And I know we've done this for years, haven't we, Andy? So I'll ask them, hey, what's the process of our meeting? And then they'll go, what are you talking about? You know, they don't know what I'm talking about. And I tell them the content is what we're talking about. The process is, how does the room feel? What's he doing? What are you doing? What am I doing? How's it feel in here? And then instead of you naming it, hopefully one of them will name it. And it's a little better if they name it than if we name it. So then they'll name, he came 20 minutes late and he's fiddling with his phone, or she's putting a beat down on me, or whatever it is. Sometimes they don't have a clue. They're just not tuned into themselves. They're not tuned into what's around. So you have to sort of spell it out. And you say, well, this is what I saw. And then, you know, they'll go, yeah, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe that was happening, you know. But it helps them to name anything that's unsafe in the room and check in with people about what their feelings are about it. So it's a real non-threatening way of naming what's going on in the room. My experience has been that interruptions tell you a lot, and it's not safe in a therapy room, in my opinion, when people are interrupting each other. And I don't jump on it right away because I want to see how often it happens. I had a couple in today that normally they don't interrupt each other much, and I sat there for 20 minutes. She had interrupted him 10 times, and I counted each time because I was wanting to build my case of something's different this week. What's going on with you, Nancy, that you felt the need to interrupt him 10 times when you don't normally do that. So, but other times, when it's like really egregious, when somebody's right in the middle of a statement and they just cut the other person off and just talk over, I go, whoa, and talk about what just happened there. And if you get a real intense counterdependent and a codependent, what they'll combine to tell you was he wanted to add to her thought, and it was okay, he didn't really do anything intrusive. And that's really not at all what happened. He wasn't adding to her thought. He cut her off at the pass, totally interrupted her, discounted what she was saying, and she's too codependent to even notice it. And if she would notice it, she wouldn't say it. So you're like, well, that's not really what I saw. What I saw was you sort of interrupted her right in the middle of what was being said. So I had this fella, real counter-dependent fella. He was stunned that anybody would dare interrupt him, like I interrupted him. And he left really angry, and he came back the next week, and he said he thought about it, and he agreed that he had interrupted her, but then he said, but I thought about it, and you know what? You interrupted me. So what you did was just as bad as what I did. And I said, I'm the therapist. I can interrupt you. You know, the rules are different for you than for me. You know, I'm in control of the environment, and I have to be able to do that. I don't do it because I want to do it. I don't do it to be rude. I only do it when I have to do it. You know, so. And then another thing is triangling. A lot of time gets wasted with people triangling. And if somebody comes in, they don't know what triangling is. They don't have a clue. They've never heard of it. To them, going in and venting is therapy. That's what they do with their girlfriends. That's what they did with the last therapist. What's the big deal? You know, that's what they do. So, so if somebody comes in and they're venting and triangling for 3 minutes, that's about all I can take. I'm done. You know, I've written down the pattern, and so I stop them, and I very pleasantly, and I give them a little lesson on what triangling is. Jerry, we had a fella in group who was your client and a former church member friend of mine, and he was going through a real intense divorce at the time, and he would come in and just, oh, I can't wait to tell you what she did this week. And he would just proceed to just want to vet and triangle about what a stinker his soon-to-be ex-wife was. And I would be like, yeah, you know, I don't know if that's really helpful. His name was Tom, and he was a really nice guy, really clever guy, really sincere guy, doing good work on himself. But he didn't, in group, he didn't have a sense of what to work on and how to work on it. So you know, I talked to him about it a couple times, and he was a little ouchy about it the first couple times. But then we got to a place in group where he would start triangling, and I would just reach over and grab a tissue and just sort of drop it to the ground like that. You know, like a referee dropping a flag. And he would go, oh, I'm triangling. I'm not supposed to do that. How can I say this in a way that would be self-differentiated? You know, so we'd help him shift gears in a way that was a little bit funny and sort of non-intrusive. But what, in terms of plus-minusing, it sort of blends into the next thing on the list, and that's you marry your issues, you're not a victim, like you guys said. What you're looking for is to shift somebody out of victim thinking, because if they're plus minusing, that's why they're doing it. Is they feel like they got the raw end of the stick, and it's not a male female thing. But the best example I can give of that, one time, like about 4 years ago, I had this couple that just had to get in before my vacation. So I stuck him in at 7:30 in the morning, and I was leaving for vacation the next day. And because she had a 10 o'clock appointment with the attorney, and she was filing. She wasn't going to go visit the attorney. She was filing at 10, saw me at 7:30. And she came in, and she was just like giving him the laser eye, you know, the stink eye, and just ripped into it. Contempt, just sort of filled with contempt. And I thought, I got 1 hour with this woman to get her moving in the direction of recovery, or this marriage is done for. You know, and my mission wasn't to save the marriage or anything. My mission always is get people in recovery. And it's no matter what they're there for. That's my goal. Get them in recovery. Get them working on themselves, and that may or may not include saving their marriage. So this woman had married this fellow, met him on Match.com, you know, which you know is trouble, because that's what I did. But 4 years into the marriage, and she thought she had married this perfectly wonderful fellow without a flaw. Whenever you think that, bad shit's about ready to happen to you. You're about to learn the truth. So it turns out this fellow was he was online, and it's still on. He was online, and he was whacking off and broadcasting it to the world for their viewing pleasure, which she wasn't impressed with one bit. She was disgusted. She thought he was a pervert. She not only was going to file for divorce, but she was going to keep him away from their child, because he must be a pedophile too. You know. So all I said was, well, you know, the truth is that I think you're married to the right guy. That everybody marries the right person, and that what we do is we unconsciously are attracted to somebody who's a hidden version of the people who hurt us the most growing up. That's all I said. Something all of us have said a million times. And I think I only said it once. And 10 minutes later, the appointment with the attorney was canceled, and she was crying like a vulnerable little girl. It was beautiful. She had a real sad little girl part when she cried. One story she told was she had a dollhouse, I think that her dad made, and in a rage one time he smashed it. You know. Oh, I left out the part. Her dad was a world-class sex addict who'd done time in prison for molesting various people. Not her. Didn't molest her. Tried to molest everybody else he got around. Went to prison. And I didn't know that going into it. But just the shift from plus minus to plus plus was just startling. All of a sudden, this guy who was a pervert, who wasn't going to even get to be around his kid, all of a sudden he was okay. He was an acceptable human being. Just because of that. And believe me, it's rarely that easy. That was easy. That was a softball. You don't get a lot of softballs, you know. I'm working with a case now that I've really enjoyed working with. It's a Skype case of a couple in Montana. And I think I have some transference with it. The case is the guy's a counter-dependent, and he's been critical and controlling with his soon-to-be ex-wife, and there's blended family issues with the adult kids that blew up. And she sought solace amidst the church people. And their diagnosis for him is he just needs more Jesus. And he needs to repent, and he needs to be a better husband, be a better Christian. And all that's probably true. But I think the reason it stirs me is that sort of was the deal with my marriage. My wife was surrounded by well-meaning, sincere Christian people. The last thing in the world of which they would have wanted would be to contribute to a divorce, but they contributed mightily to a divorce, because that was the paradigm was poor you poor victim, this sinner and evildoer needs to repent, you know. And but what they did before they got divorced was they brokered a deal where he would go 6 sessions with the Christian counselor with her, and she'd sit through 6 sessions with me. And I thought, okay, we'll give it a roll. I don't like my chances, you know. But the thing about this paradigm is what you have going for you is it's true. Happens to be the truth about a lot of things, you know. So this woman's really, she really has surprised me, and she came into it sort of going this way, and I was going this way, and now she's more teachable now after 7 sessions than he is, because she really was teachable. She just had the wrong teacher. But she totally is teachable and non-reactive, and we had a half-hour session this morning, and she's like, I really want to go out of my way not to plus minus or to be reactive or to say anything negative about my husband. And this was a woman that was just beating him down, you know, just killing him, you know, 7 sessions ago. So that's a beautiful thing when you can affect a paradigm shift from plus minus to plus plus. So so I'm going to launch into the second point. That's only my first point. I got 50 more. That's the longest one maybe. But any thoughts, reactions, questions before I launch on? Feel free to jump in with comments. So, of course, the second thing is you're not a victim. And this is what, to me, this is what differentiates family tree counseling. A lot of places are going to shoot to make the room safe. But the concept that you marry your issues, you think that it would be the majority of marriage counselors do this with Harville Hendricks, has this little book out there called Getting the Love You Want. It hasn't been my experience. And to me, a marriage counselor who tries to fix the marriage, and instead of getting people in recovery for their family of origin issues, they're doing more harm than good. You know, they're terrible, really bad, because it just doesn't work. A little marriage enrichment doesn't work with people that are at each other's throats, and that's what they try to do is let's put a little paint and a little carpet, and when what they really need is to knock down walls and replace the electrical, you know. So, but it really makes all the difference in the world to shift somebody out of a victim paradigm. It'll clean up the air in the room. Many years ago, one of my basketball buddies was a pastor, and he was on the basketball court in between games. He was vetting me to see if I might be a worthy referral source, and I failed because he asked me, what's the key to marriage counseling? And I didn't say, I think he wanted me to say, you know, quote scripture, and I do actually quote a lot of scripture, but that's not our main approach. What I said was, every single couple I've worked with, there's always at least one person who presents as a victim. And that's been my experience. I've never had a couple in all the years I've been doing that. I've had some that I've really scratched my head, and it's taken me 3 sessions to figure out which one it is. And it's real subtle, and it's not a big issue. I've had a few of those. But with most people, it's like sirens and, you know, the house is on fire, you know, this bastard did this bad thing, and, you know, I'm the victim. And but I told him, I said, the key to marriage counseling is to enlighten the person who thinks they've been victimized to the truth that they never have been. Not one time. Not by their marriage. They very well were victimized as a child, but not by this knucklehead you're sitting next to. Nancy's going to write a book. She said you can't steal her title. The title of the book is Why I Married a Lunkhead. So I think it'll sell. But as soon as the people have the paradigm shift and the epiphany, then the environment, instead of adversarial, it becomes collaborative. You know, they're therapy buddies. They're just sharing, they're co-opting the hour to do therapy. Stephen Covey said, if you want to help somebody quickly change their paradigm. So part of the defining characteristics from my perspective of a family tree therapist is you are first and foremost a teacher early on. You're not a therapist, you're a teacher. You're there to teach them stuff. You got a lot of stuff to teach them. You got 50 things to teach them, plus 25 of your own. You know, you got a lot of things to teach them. So, page 2. I refer to victim mentality as the worst kind of cancer. I think victim mentality is the devil. It's the devil, my estimation. I call it the number 1 cause of divorce, the number 2 cause of divorce, the number 3 cause of divorce, on through 10. That's how I look at the world. Because if you have somebody who's looking at their own issues, then there's all kinds of hope. Because when you have 2 people that are looking at their own issues, man, you could do so much. But if the problem is this so and so, and he's got a lot of shame, he's gonna tune out, you know, whatever is being said, because he really is being shamed, you know, and it's hard. I think that's the whole ball game. You have to get them to change how they think about who they are and why they married who they married. One of the things I use with that is the sparrow story. You guys familiar with the sparrow story? You're not? What?
No.
Okay. Do you guys, how many people use that still? Yeah. I'm not going to read it for you, but it's just this cute little story about what marriage really is. And it says the bird is flying south for the winter late, lands in a barnyard, gets pooped on by a big cow, and thinks he's dead, but actually the poop actually thaws the bird out, and you know the bird's going to live, and then it starts singing, chirping and singing, and then a cat come by and eat the little bird. So the 2 morals to the story. The first is everyone who shits on you isn't necessarily your enemy. That's what marriage is. To recruit somebody who's really good at shitting on you.
You know, the one who gets you out of your shit.
That's not your friend at all.
The affair's not your friend.
Right. Your affair is your worst enemy, or the divorce attorney can be your worst enemy. So, but that's a mind bender for most people. They don't see that coming, but it makes a lot of sense, you know.
I've never had anybody guess what the moral of that story is.
Really, you ask them what
I
guess
what
what the
they
moral of the
just
story
gave,
is.
and, yeah, maybe once in the 20-some odd years.
I don't know why I like it so much. I just find it very profound. I'll say to people, a lot of times in a first session, the purpose of marriage is to make you friggin' miserable. And they a lot of times look at each other and laugh and say, hey, we're doing pretty good. We're pretty friggin' miserable. I'm like,
Following God's plan.
yeah. Okay, I'm out. No, I'm still going. So they feel a sense of encouragement that they're normal. That's another thing this paradigm does, is it normalizes, you're supposed to be freaking miserable right now. You're no crazier than the next guy. You know, this is the way it's supposed to be. I had a couple in this morning in their late 40s, and the kids are going off to college, and they're good-looking people, and they're wealthy, And they're like, it shouldn't be this way. We should be really close right now. I'm like, no, you shouldn't. You should be miserable right now. Because look at your childhood. Look at what you described. Look at his childhood. You're supposed to be miserable right now. That's good. It's a blessing. It's a gift. The guy goes, so tell me how is it a gift? And I said, because it'll make you more humble. And it's an opportunity. Absolutely. It's it'll tear down your psychological defenses. It'll help you be open to what's true about you, whether you learn that from your spouse or people at work or your kids or your friends. And then it'll give you an opportunity to heal the woundedness of your childhood. You know, so it's all good. It's all good.
Or I say, I'm amazed that you're doing this well.
Given-
Incredible.
given
It's
stuff,
incredible,
right?
given.
Given where you came
Right,
from,
this is-
you've
you're
been
amazing.
married 15
You're
years. Yeah.
Sometimes you've married a better version of your mother or your father.
Right. You've reframed the pain.
So really those two were in order, and the next 50 aren't really in order, simply because I had a hard time situating them on the page with all the little dots and stuff. So hereafter they're all out of order, but those first two, that's the order I put them in. So the third thing is the role of the therapist. I think early on to be the teacher / doctor. So I know that some people, we were taught in school that the clients, that the answers is within them, and it's probably true eventually. The way I look at this work is we're trying to get somebody in recovery and then grow them up and see them grow out of their codependency and develop their sense of self and be broken as a counter-dependent and develop their sense of self. And then over time, absolutely, there are lots of answers in them that we don't know. But the first couple sessions, the first 3 or 4 sessions, don't say that. That's not what they need. They've tried that guy, and the guy failed. They've been to that guy 3 times. 3 different marriage counselors told them that, and it was bullshit. They want answers. They want direction. They want to find out why their marriage is this way and how to fix it, and we can do that for them. So we're the doctor. When I get done with a feedback session, I tell them what books to read. I don't ask them if they want to read a book. I say, this is what I want you to read. And they're like, yes, sir. I'll read that book. Or I say, I really think you need group therapy. I sign them up. I don't ask them if they want to come to group therapy. Now, if I can tell they have trust issues with the universe, I don't put them in group therapy. They're probably not going to come, and if they are, they're going to be miserable. But I'm the doctor, and I know what's better for them early on than what they do. Okay, so I'm the expert, and if you hit them with all this paradigm, mind-blowing stuff, they have awesome respect for you. And they'll do what you tell them to do. You tell them to read a book, they'll read a book. Tell them to join a group, they'll join a group. Tell them to put that divorce on hold, they'll do that. Because they respect you, because you told them stuff in one session that they didn't learn in a year with the other guy down the street. And that's true. Don't we hear that all the time from people? There's a biblical verse where it talks about Jesus, and I've talked about this before, where it says, he talked as if one who has authority. And he didn't have any credentials. He didn't have a Pharisee degree from the local Pharisee school. He wasn't a rabbi. He was just a carpenter's son. But when he talked, it rang true to people. And that's what changes lives. And we can do that because it's a good paradigm, but because we've done the work ourselves. You know, it's all about doing the work yourself. And when you talk from that place, it'll resonate with people. Now, one time Karen brought up an issue, and it's what they teach in school, and that is, what about the issue of having too much influence with a client or too much control with a client? You don't remember that? Yeah. And that's a genuine issue. I was telling her I have this fella in one of my groups, my men's group, who I just like him for some reason. He's a cool guy, and I think I could probably enjoy being friends with him, but I'll never reach out to him as a friend until he's done doing at least his marital therapy and 95% of his individual therapy, because I don't want that. There's a boundary issue there, with that, and or go into business with somebody, it's like when people come. I mean, this is you guys have. You don't need to hear this. You've heard this already. That dual relationships. Yeah, and at Family Tree, we do work on our recovery in front of people, but like I have this client that Angie was so wonderful to pass on to me. I just want to briefly describe this client. Denise,
Nobody want to describe her?
You're not going to say anything about it?
She was referred to me by one of my good friends. I always talk about her.
Okay. She had borderline written all over her, and she looked a little scary, And so my difficulty is I share my stuff in group, and I've had some health problems, and now this gal is just sending me emails about my health problems. So I'm going to have to build a wall there, and maybe stop talking about my health problems in group therapy, because she's, as a codependent, and maybe as somebody who needs a little more, it's like you have to keep a wall up, or it gets a little too weird, So, so does that make sense? Is sort of be the expert. How do you think that would be as a new person coming across as this super strong expert when this is like your second client? How do you think that would work?
I think that would be difficult, but I think if what you're putting out there, the information that you're putting out there, if you can back it up and you feel like it's the truth and it is the truth, that's what speaks for that's what gives you the authority, not necessarily experience.
Yeah. How was that for you when you started, Karen?
Well, I started in